I'm going to be there Saturday for the Titans-Bengals game, but I'm starting to get very, very nervous. As I said on Monday when we talked, I was there in 1999, I believe, when the Titans lost to the Ravens as the 1 seed. The Ravens went on to win the Super Bowl that year. And I was also there when the Ravens came in and won again. I want to say it was like 2008. Titans were the 1 seed. Both times the Titans have been the 1 seed, they were not able to host the home playoff game for the AFC. Now, the Titans have been in 3 AFC championship games, but all of them have occurred on the road. Furman, just to be honest, I don't know who the Titans are going to be playing, the Chiefs or the Bills. We'll talk about that matchup, which is a fabulous one as well. But if we could just host the AFC championship game in Nashville, that would be nice. I'll take the Bengals win and roll the dice for whatever might happen in the AFC championship game. Obviously, you're then a game away from the Super Bowl. But my goodness, win this one, and at least you're in the AFC championship game for the second time in 3 years, which is a pretty good achievement.
Yeah, I mean, it's a franchise that continues to fly under the radar, given its staying power and stability. When you look at what they've been able to accomplish, I mean, I've been as big a detractor of Mike Vrabel as there is, but this might be his most masterful coaching job yet. Now, of course, the season loses some luster if they go down as a home favorite against the Bengals. And to your point, that number 1 seed coming out of the AFC becomes all for naught. But win this football game, you have what you aspire to when the season starts, a home playoff game with a chance to go to LA to play for the Lombardi Trophy. And this is a Titans team, in my opinion, defensively that hasn't been given enough credit, given how good they are with a trio of rushers in Simmons, in Autry, and Landry that can generate pressure, a defensive backfield that's been banged up for extended stretches, but is as healthy now as they've been all year long. And I love the matchup of Christian Fulton going up against his former LSU teammates in Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. We'll see what Elijah Molden can do as potentially a slot defender against Tyler Boyd. My biggest thing, if you're the Tennessee Titans and you've had 2 weeks to build a game plan, or let's go, a week essentially knowing who your opponent was going to be, you make the Bengals beat you left-handed. You don't want to lose this game at home because Jamar Chase goes for some ungodly number of 150 yards receiving. I mean, Joe Mixon hasn't done much. He's averaged less than 4 yards per carry over his last 6 games. And I think everything sets up perfectly for the Titans to get a win. Now, will they do so in dominant fashion and cover as a 3.5, 4-point favorite? That remains to be seen. But I really believe that this is the perfect matchup for them to get to that championship and let the other 2 teams beat each other up in what I deem to be the varsity game in the AFC semifinals, and the Titans are playing in the JV matchup.
Okay, we'll get to the varsity game, as you called it, in a minute. Is there any impact here to Derrick Henry? This line, as you mentioned, 3.5 or 4, which is a fairly decent favorite for the Titans at this point in time, given that most of these games are going to be fairly tight in the divisional round. Do you put any value at all on Derrick Henry returning in terms of what this line is?
Oh, you have to in this particular spot. And we actually broke this down on our Bet the Board podcast when we did a deep dive on all 4 of these games. When you look at these 2 teams, as far as their season-long body of work, you can understand why most books open the Titans a 2.5-point favorite in this spot. Given their past defense numbers, given what we've seen from the Bengals, especially their current form. But the reality of it is, when you look at the Tennessee Titans, with and without Derrick Henry, this offense misses a key component. And I'm not telling fans something they don't already know, but you look at Ryan Tannehill's numbers as far as yards per attempt. You look at their ability to operate off of play action. I mean, Deontay Foreman has been nice. He's at least been able to solidify the position, but it's been kind of feast or famine. With Derrick Henry in the mix against a Bengals defensive line that's going to be nicked up. We're not quite sure exactly who's going to be out there, but we know Larry Ogunjobi definitely won't be, as he was put on IR. I mean, the Bengals the last 2 weeks, they've shown kinks in their run defense. Yes, week 18, they didn't play a whole lot of guys, but last weekend against the Raiders, it's a little bit disconcerting that Josh Jacobs was able to run for more than 5 yards per carry. So if the Titans can force the Bengals to play an extra man in the box, it's going to create some outstanding matchups on the outside. And honestly, Clay, the trade that you were so excited about coming into the season hasn't bore fruit yet, but suddenly all of that gets erased if Julio Jones provides that 1B receiver or even a bona fide number 2 opposite A.J. Brown, and he can replicate some of the playoff success we've seen from him when he was a member of the Atlanta Falcons, albeit much earlier in his career.
I'll mention this too, by the way. Julio Jones has beaten a couple of times in the last couple of weeks of the season, including the final week of the regular season, he's gotten open by a couple of yards deep, and Ryan Tannehill has missed him. So part of that, I think, is just putting on tape that he does have the wheels to still get open deep. I think at some point in this Bengals game, Ryan Tannehill is going to have an option to hit Julio Jones for a big play because, as you mentioned, the play-action game with Derrick Henry back is very, very impactful. And we know A.J. Brown is a big-time playmaker at receiver, meaning Julio's going to get to go against the number 2 corner for either the Bengals or the Bills or the Chiefs if the Titans were to win. So I'd say just keep an eye on that. I think Julio is poised to potentially have a pretty big game based on some of the signals we've seen down the stretch run here.